Season 2 of Super Pros Bros. I am Player 1, Ike, and with me as always is...
Player 2, Eli, and Bohemian Rhapsody. Did you know this podcast is available on YouTube, SoundCloud, and Spotify? Coffee break.
What? I did not, Bro Sidon. Are those the same places they could...
Like,
comment?
share.
And subscribe?
It sure is.
Got him.
The fucking dumbest.
Worth it!
So slow.
It's called a build-up, homie.
Okay. Jesus.
So, while my co-host composes himself,
Fucking
I got some
recover.
corrections. Mentioned that Muggsy Bogues was, I think I said a different height, like something like 5'6". Motherfucker was 5'3" and rocking the NBA. However, I incorrectly gave him the accolade of winning the dunk contest. That was not him, that was Spud Webb, who was a staggering 5'7" and was out-dunked motherfuckers that were like 7 foot and 6'10". So, don't let your dreams be dreams. Go up there and fucking have springs in your steps and fucking
You
hit it!
can have hops too.
You can have hops too. People that might have hops in their steps this week would be some of these awesome Oscar winners that surprisingly were on the same page as the Oscars for once.
What a concept.
Congratulations go to the whole entire crew that was Everything Everywhere All at Once, especially Ki Kwan for Waymond. But I mean, they rocked the Oscars. I think they got like something like, it felt like 10, but I think it was like 7.
I think they
something like
got
that.
7, and I think they got nods.
Yeah.
10 or something like that, or nominated for 10.
So yeah, they crushed it, and as in our opinion they should have. And it's also
Justifiably
great to see a movie crush that well at the box office and at the Oscars, especially considering I believe their budget was like 14 million.
That is not that high.
For that kind of movie, that is definitely not that high, because it reads big to me.
Yeah,
And like does not ever.
I would have added a
stop
0.
on-
Honestly, I would have guessed
Yeah.
there was an extra 0 on that price tag.
The visual spectacle to that movie makes it feel like there should be. But, you know, that's the beauty of ingenuity and the digital age, is you can make some dope looking shit for real cheap if you're good.
Fair enough.
Also, congratulations coming back in the fold, Brendan Fraser!
For being blacklisted, that man has had a hell of a reascent.
Hell yeah.
Which,
Love to see it.
God bless him. Man deserves it.
God bless him.
Man should never
Oh,
have been
yeah.
blacklisted in the fucking first place.
No. Beautiful man, lovely man. If you listen to any interview, he's just a peach. And then he's an awesome actor as well. You love to see them both. Him and Keanu can go do whatever they want, and I will go see it at my earliest convenience. They've got me forever.
Yeah.
It's continued to be great and just gentle beasts. And on a sad note, before we move on at all, rest in power, Lance Reddick. Gone too soon, died at 60, believe of natural causes, in his Studio City home. Don't know how, don't know why, but I'm sorry to see you go. You made just an immense impact in every time he had a role, and was just fantastic.
Had such an awesome and very notable voice. Like, very, very unique voice. Like,
And also was willing to, like, he did the really cool thing you see a lot of, like, truly great serious actors do, where they allow themselves to have fun. Like, you see this with Patrick Stewart, you see this with Ian McKellen, you saw this with Lance Reddick, where they do these awesome roles, these big roles, and then, like, Lance Reddick did something for, like, College Humor, where he was, like, a toy store owner, like a psycho toy store owner.
bruh, I can do you one better.
He also was on, what was that? Who's that late night show that Hannibal Buress was on? Those fucking psycho shit.
I don't know what you're talking about. But I was going to say, he's in fucking Paradise PD, for God's sakes. That god-awful cartoon. It's not a good show. It's fucking terrible. And it's like they're actively trying to get themselves canceled by being offensive. It's kind of funny in that regard. But he plays an FBI agent with balls the size of coconuts. And that's a plot point.
Sorry, it was Funny or Die, not College Humor,
Okay.
and it was the Eric Andre show. He came out for a bit dressed as LeVar Burton, like from the waist up, a topless LeVar Burton from Star Trek, and from the wrists down like Kunta Kinte. So he's just mixing his two roles and just coming out being insane on one of the most insane shows you'll ever see. It's nuts. But also, like, he's doing The Wire. He's doing, like, the guy had so much range and was not afraid to enjoy acting and fuck around as much as he did, like, uplift and elevate the art form. So it's like, you love to see it.
Also, did a bunch of tremendous voice acting. Like,
oh, God, yeah.
I think,
listen them down.
I think probably one of the more notable is, like, Commander Zavala and, like, Destiny in that franchise.
Yeah.
Not sure how you fucking replace him. But you don't. What am I talking about?
You don't. To move from the sad to move from the sad reality to our reality, what's been going on with you in this last couple weeks since we spoke, Broskinkowski?
Near-death experiences.
Motherfucker, what?
Yeah, so it turns out...
You'd think I would have known this already, as I'm his brother and all.
There's no big deal. It's just a severe allergic reaction.
Two, how am I supposed to kill you now and get away with it?
Hey, for my chinchillas. So we bought this big-ass fucking bag of the stuff. And so I would, clean the cage and, put in new food, put in new hay. And so you grab shit by the handful, whatever. Don't think anything of it. And, like, feel a little bit congested. But that's pretty common, because I'm, a bunch of dust, a bunch of hay, fur, whatever. Like, I usually have to go wash my face off and, like, sneeze a time or two, and then we're good. So I go to do that. I start coughing. I'm like, it's this obnoxious little persistent cough. I'm like, God, fuck off. Like, stop it. And I start thinking, I'm like, shit, do I have COVID again? Like, that's my first thought. I'm like,
yeah.
I was like, no. I got my ass kicked by you once. Please don't. Let's not rehash this. I don't want to.
Yeah.
But then I keep coughing. Like, I walk out, and it just keeps happening, and I'm like, this seems way too fast to be COVID. And I realize my throat feels like it's starting to tighten. I'm like, what the fuck is happening to my body? And I feel fucking weak pretty quick. So I, like, sit down and keep coughing. And at this point, Artemis is like, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I'm like, I don't fucking know, man. And then my throat starts to actually close. I'm like, and it dawns on me, I'm like, it's like congestion, throat closing, really fast, allergies. Like, I'm not allergic to anything. This sounds like an allergic reaction. It's just like, you're just fucking fist deep in hay. Maybe? Question mark? Like, maybe. And so at this point, Artemis is like 3 inches from my face watching me. Like, I'm gonna die. She's like, what's happening to you? Like, 'cause she's watching her husband rapidly go downhill. I'm like, I think I'm allergic to something. She just, like, cool. Has basically this super strong antihistamine she takes or something. And she just, like, puts it in my hand. She's like, take it. I'm like, okay. Because my voice starts to give out.
Yeah.
And I start to sound like somebody on their deathbed. Like, my breathing got fucking ragged. It was unsettling. And so I take it, try and throw it back with some water, struggle. Artemis goes, takes my wallet, puts it in my pocket, puts shoes on my feet. She's like, if you get any fucking worse, we're leaving for the hospital. And I'm like, okay. Like,
sounds good.
Like, I don't have the fucking strength to argue. And so we just fucking sit there. I try to get her to watch, like, something on YouTube just to distract. And she's like, She's just like staring at me. Like, I did not realize it. I sounded bad to, like, my ears. She told me, like, she's like, no, you sounded worse. Like, she was like, I'm waiting to see if you turn blue. Like, Jesus Christ. I did not, fortunately, and so antihistamine started to kick in, and my throat finally fucking chillaxed. I could breathe again.
Yeah.
And what is my fucking first response? I just start laughing about the whole fucking thing. That is my
it's the Shears family way, don't you know?
That is my coping mechanism. Artemis starts freaking the fuck out because she just watched her husband almost die in front of her. But, reasonable response.
That's what a sane person would do.
Yeah,
yes.
like, she was like, oh, you could breathe again? I could freak the fuck out now. Cool. And she told me, unequivocally, she's like, "You're fucking staying home tomorrow. I'm making sure you don't die." I'm like, "Okay, sure, fair enough. I'll take a day off work." Um, and
Yes, ma'am.
yeah, and so that was a hell. That felt like someone had punched me in the lungs for a couple days. But now at this point, there's no real lingering side effect, fortunately. So yeah, that was probably the closest I've ever been to death, I think. Just like,
Let's keep it that way.
yeah,
For
it
a
was
hot minute, shall we?
it's kind of funny. I joked about it, then I realized, like, nah, that goes like 5 more minutes untreated. I might just be a cadaver. Like I was rapidly approaching the, like, we need to trach you territory. Like,
Yeah.
this is like EpiPen or bust. Like,
Yeah, I was hoping she had an epi, but yeah,
No.
strong antihistamine, nice.
yeah, it's like she was not gonna let herself be distracted. Like, not letting you die. Like, yeah, that's
So,
pleasant.
moving forward, how is the hay to be
Oh, we
handled?
fucking threw that shit out. I'm not keeping what? No, that's
Well, how is this one different from the last
No
one? Like, what are you gonna do
clue.
moving forward?
which is
Okay, so you're just reverting to the last brand, basically.
yeah. We haven't bought new hay, but I probably won't be the one to touch it. Just guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, but otherwise, I've just been around existing, being angry at too many things.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Sounds healthy.
it's a great way to live. I need to stop paying attention to the news because it just makes me want to go on a fucking bitch slapping spree. I can't stand.
That's a story I'd read. He like gets in his car and drives across the country and slaps every
I was
politician.
gonna say, just drives into fucking Congress and proceeds to bitch slap into the entire Republican Party. Light 'em up, boys. Exactly. I think what set me off was like hearing about Tucker Carlson trying to whitewash January 6th as a casual fucking touring party. I'm like, you can go fucking die. Like, just shut.
Oh, really?
Shut.
Not, hold on. I need to look up. Hold on, I need to look up what this is. It's, not George Santos, just like full cloth.
Yeah, listen,
creating his own backstory out of
he's-
complete thin air.
He is so over the top, and it's there's actually sort of there's not repercussions for what I've been talking about, but like he's so redonkulously over the top that I just discounted him as a person. I'm like, you don't have validity. I don't think anyone actually listens to you. You fucking clown.
It's just impressive how much
Oh,
you lie.
no,
Like, certain people lie about some things. It's literally like, is there anything he didn't lie
yeah,
about?
there,
Like,
at this point, I don't think anyone could ever listen to anything he says and be like, he
Yeah.
might be telling the truth. Like, nah, just default responses. Well, that's bullshit.
I'm gonna be impressed if he gets reelected. I think he
I'm
has
amazed-
literally
I would
this
be amazed
one
if he
term.
serves out his term.
Also that, yeah, because his own party is like, bruh.
Yeah, when even the Republican
When
Party,
Mitch McConnell is like, dude, like
the-
you fucked
when the
up.
fucking people who perpetuated the lie of the election was stolen look at you and go, "Come on, man, get your shit together." Like, Jesus Christ.
That's a wake up call if there
Yeah,
ever
like,
was one.
the bar is really fucking low, and you somehow went under. Like,
Yeah.
goddamn. But yeah, here, whitewashing domestic terrorism. No, no, and the fact that there's
But we don't want to believe we did.
the fact there's no repercussions for fucking trying to gaslight an entire country like that and basically committing fraud. I would call that fraud or slander or libel. No, it'd be slander.
Something.
It's
One of
slander.
the-
Libel's print.
Yep.
That's pretty fucking slanderous, I would argue. Like, I would contend that's very much discrediting and trying to
Yep.
remove the authenticity of, like, the stories of policemen who were beaten savagely. Like,
One was killed.
yeah, and several others were so, like, traumatized by the event and, that they fucking committed suicide days later. Like, there were,
Oh,
like,
really?
3.
Oh, wow.
Yes, like, more than one.
I'm not surprised.
Like, yeah, it was a fucking horror show. Like, that makes sense. Like, the fact that you would just casually fucking try and dissuade the notion that they are being legitimate, fuck you. Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop because I'm just gonna get more and more heated the more and more I talk about this. But yeah,
On the fun side of
that's been my
news-
brain.
Yeah, that's fair. On the fun side of news, your boy still be in prison, huh?
I mean, listen, there's some good in the world, and he's got lung cancer, which
Oh,
I wouldn't
nice.
wish that tumor. I wouldn't wish Andrew Tate on any tumor. Honestly, it's a respectable profession. I
Yes,
also
and
love that people tried to argue like the Romanian people got him sick, and I'm like, what? You don't think it's all the cigars that he's constantly smoking? You don't
all
think?
that bullshit vitriol that just keeps flowing from his lips. You don't think some of that got lodged in there?
I mean, every public appearance, that man has a fucking cigar in his mouth. Like,
Yeah. He's got to look cool, okay?
yeah, all right. Have fun with your chemo, jackass. Look cool after that. There's no dignified look with chemotherapy. You look like a fucking
To
skeleton.
be fair, there's no dignified look. I'm loving his selfies from fucking prison. He keeps getting more ratchet and ratchet. I'm loving it. Just that little bit of hair growing on top of his very precisely shaved chrome dome. Oh, just makes him look like the douchebag he is.
Listen, the
So
only way it
great.
gets better if he gets shoved in prison. That man can die and the world will be better for it. What a parasite.
So, in happier me related news.
Yeah, please take the mic.
I know. Did I talk to you about how I was kind of like deciding to like get back and go hard when it comes to Magic this year?
A little bit.
Okay, so I don't. If this is a repeat on the podcast, I do apologize. So I'll make it a little bit more of a redacted, shorter version. But I've qualified for 2 big tournaments this year,
Nice.
and I've decided to, instead of approaching it the way I did in the past, a little passively, to take a more like kind of full throttle. Instead of half-assing it, I'm full-assing it, as Ron Swanson likes to say. So I'm going full ass on Magic this year. And I am going to like kind of approach it like, a collegiate sport or something like that, where it doesn't consume your life because you don't get paid for it, but it does consume all your free time that you are willing to give it, which is what I'm attempting to do. So signed up for a rental service on Magic Online so that I can play anything and everything I want and kind of, am free to mess around. It's going to be interesting to see if it bites me in the ass, but I paid for a year in advance. It saved me a little bit of money, and also hopefully it gives me enough of like sunk costs that I feel obligated to do it, even when I don't necessarily want to sometimes. So turning it from less of a fun pastime into more of a sporting pastime, competitive pastime. I don't know what the technical word is, but like basically approaching it like a semi-professional athlete, a farm league pitcher, if you will. But been doing that. Got a result yesterday when I actually top 8'd the challenge, which I haven't top 8'd a Magic the Gathering online challenge, which are not easy. It's usually only hitters that come out and play that, and there's usually a lot of them. Like, I think yesterday was a little short, but it was still like 80. And I ended up losing a rematch in the quarterfinals, but is what it is. I think I played pretty well, and also it was the first time I had top 8 a challenge in years. Not that I've tried, but I think, like, your boy took a back seat when it came to like intense online professional gaming a while ago. So it was kind of nice to get back into it and pretty shortly get back to the stage where I want to be at, basically. But did that. Oh, I did something I haven't done since I was like 5 or 6. So that was cool.
Oh.
Pissed my pants.
I don't know what I was expecting to hear.
So little little pretext. I am missing a gallbladder, which occasionally makes restroom usage a little bit immediate, which is whatever, and I usually play around it. However, hadn't had this been an issue in any way, used the bathroom before leaving from work, left from work. Leaving from work, coming back home takes about like an hour. And so I'm driving, I'm feeling like mostly fine. And I get out of my car, and there are no restrooms between me and my apartment, which is 3 blocks away, with this very odd intersection. and I start like run walking, trying to do that like uh um not the fuck is it called? Skipping thing. To like kind of like keep it like my body enough in motion that I'm like, I'm fucking doing it. And just at a certain point my body was like, you don't have it anymore, champ. And it was just like I was like,
All right, boys.
and
let
you
it
know
rip.
what? Yeah. It was mildly embarrassing, also fucking hilarious. It would not have any way been bothersome, except that some of it got in one of my shoes. Which was real fucking weird. Walking back with and I was like, oh, that's funny. But honestly, other than getting to laugh at myself and live this odd moment, it was a realization that all those years that anybody, including myself, was like, I need to pee, so they went 100 in their car is a fucking idiot. Just piss yourself. It's not that bad. Just fucking don't speed because you need to use the bathroom. Don't make any aggressive decisions you need to go to the bathroom. Piss yourself, wash your pants, move on with your life. It's not that bad.
Words
More
to
of the
live
story.
by.
Words to live by.
Piss yourself, wash your pants, move on with your life.
Yeah. It's fine. You'll be okay.
Oh, it's just so matter of fact.
I mean, it's just, these are facts, homie. Do with them what you want.
Spitting straight facts.
So, when it comes to our main topic today, what we spitting about?
Oh, we were talking about fiction that inspired us in some capacity, that made us want to write or create stories in general.
Shall I lead off?
Please do.
I think it's actually one that affected both of us, but I know I introduced this one to you, so you're welcome.
Yeah, you do have a casual 6 years of looking at shit before me.
Shut up.
Yeah, okay.
So, I was the first, the coolest,
Shut the fuck
the
up.
dopest of the bros to read Berserk. I got introduced to this when I was in college, when I was 19, going to Sac State. A friend of mine, while I was staying up all night, not going to any of my classes.
Also, I'm going to add a quick note here. It would be really odd if I was introducing it to you and discovered it at 13. Proceed.
Sure. However you want to feel good about yourself.
Yeah, fucking ham it up. Give it proper context.
So when I was 19, I going to college at Sac State. Not actually going. I was at the living at the college, occasionally going to college. In the interim, I was watching. This is the glory days of YouTube as far as us pedestrians were concerned, because so much shit got uploaded there, and you could just watch it for free. I watched all of Cowboy Bebop, subtitled in great like 720p on YouTube. It was fully there. There was no like, oh, we gotta take this down, we gotta take that down. You could just watch anything and everything on YouTube. This is like a la 2007. Everything was on it. It was dope. Full movies, good quality, up there. Nobody's taking it down. Nobody cared. Wild West, baby. And I was getting really deep into YouTube, and my friend goes, oh, you should, I've got some shows that I downloaded from Pirate Bay or from LimeWire, any and all of the classics.
Mm-hmm.
And he gives me this hard drive. I'm going through and watching it. I think I watched like Applegate and a couple other like cool anime, and I end up on, I think it's the 90s version of Berserk. It is not the best. It's got a lot of, it's kind of short. The ending is a little bit jagged, and the animation did not have the right budget. However, the story is fucking fire. And oddly, the soundtrack I think is quite great. Like if you go back, like people will still use the kind of like theme music and like the sound and the just the overall like intro track, and people will just play that shit because it's fire. And ended up falling in love with it. And then I was like, oh, is there more? He goes, nah, they ended the show. But the manga's still going. I was like, all right. Holy fucking shit. Went and read that manga over the next like year or so. Damn. So good. It literally, I was, and am still now, thinking about how to translate it to, I think especially after watching Game of Thrones, I was like, I want to make this into a movie. Like an American, a Western TV show. Like, this thing looks fucking amazing. The story's fucking great. The characters are relatable yet unique. It's altogether dope as fuck. What about you? What was one of your first like, oh, this needs to, this is making me need to do something with a pencil.
As much as it hasn't aged the best, Aragon. Um, it's reading back. I'm like, whoa, this is not as good as I want it to be. God bless nostalgia and nostalgia filters, but I
Wait, you're not talking about the 2006 action fantasy
fuck now.
epic?
I ain't talking about the movie.
But it starred John Malkovich and Jeremy Irons.
John Malkovich for like a scene and a half.
Continue.
Anyway, it was there was something about it that just kind of stuck out to me. Like it absolutely fucking smashed me with like the teen fiction vibes. God damn it, I got suckered into the young adult trap. But it was cool because in a lot of ways it felt very unique to me at the time. And it gave, like, for quite a while, most of, like, fiction that I read was very, I'm not gonna say whitewashed, but, like, our mom was very opposed to, like, our mom started very opposed to violence. She's kind of let up and realized that, like,
we're grown adults.
We're grown adults, and the violent media doesn't make somebody intrinsically violent. Which I'm glad she had that revelation eventually.
I'm glad she had it while you were still at home.
It was mostly gone before I was. I mean, it took a while. I mean, started at 13 with WoW and moderation. Even so.
I mean,
sure.
not to yes
yes.
you, but I literally didn't get to watch anything that wasn't like G-rated until like most of the way through high school.
No, you had to deal with the brunt of it, but anyways.
You're welcome.
Yes, because I chose the order. Anyways, it was one of those. It kind of stood out because it was a little bit darker and like violence was a huge part of it, and just there was shit went wrong, and it was very easy to kind of see it play out. It had a lot of interesting characters for me at the time, and I was like, this is so cool, and it was exacerbated by the fact that the guy who wrote it was like, I think Christopher Paolini. At the time I was like 19. And it did well. And that was so cool because it's like, you can do this younger. Like, it kind of opened the door for this idea that, like, you can be. It's not just for, like, middle-aged dudes with a typewriter kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, like, this is accessible. I think him and, like, Dave Pilkey, the guy that fucking wrote Captain Underpants, same kind of thing. It was like, did it very, very young. And it's, had a measure of success. And it's like, that's really cool. And it stands out, not necessarily in the merit of the novel itself, but of who made it. And it is an inaccessible medium. So that was one of the first ones that I can really think of. I was like, this is an option.
Yeah, this is so. In a different way, this is like one of those things why representation matters. You see this a lot with more malign. Obviously, we're straight white men. We get plenty of work.
We've lucked out.
Yeah, but still seeing somebody your age do something can inspire you. Now imagine if you're a maligned group and you see somebody of your race, of your gender, of your sexual orientation do something.
Yeah.
It changes shit. And it's really lovely to hear and see that even for something as tawdry as being a young man, seeing that it made a difference on you. And that's, proof that representation matters in any and all of its forms.
What about you?
On the flip reverse of that, I'm going to talk about the Royal Tenenbaums, which is the opposite of representation. Again, straight white male.
Let's go exclusion.
Yeah, it's not exclusion. It's just somebody telling their story that they told it in a very unique way. I think Wes Anderson gets a little bit of shit for being tweed white guy, but he's the best tweed white guy. I don't know. He's telling his story, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think there's something wrong with the industry that other people aren't getting their shot, not that he gets to make his shot. That's a different talk for a different time that we're both unqualified for. Yes. So, Royal Tenenbaums is I don't even know when it came out, but I think it's like the second or third movie by Wes Anderson. And this movie, it's kind of one of the ones that has me still always kind of like craning my neck and thinking about directing potentially,
Hmm.
as if that world's ever going to fall into my lap. But one of the things I loved is that you get to write your characters, like if you look at his movies, you get to write characters as flawed as you want. There's this idea that like, oh, you got to do, this, you got to do that, you have to have that. It's like the main character of Royal Tenenbaums sucks. He's an old man who's coming back to his family that he like left and was a dickhead to, and trying to make amends. He's trying to do good, but he's still a very flawed character, and you see it the whole time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fuck to him, and it's played marvelously by Gene Hackman, who apparently wasn't acting that much as he was like really annoying to be on set with, but the end product is great, so thank you. But
Question mark?
one of the things that really made me like why it inspired me to do writing was the way Wes Anderson writes scenes, in that it kind of doesn't care about your moral sensibility sometimes. There's like, the way he introduced music, the whole kind of vibe of it, and this is part of the one that gets me for directing, is the fact that he uses pastels. I'm a huge fan of watercolors. I think a lot of that has to do with watching old Disney animated movies where they're doing action over a watercolor back. It's a pretty classic, if you look at Snow White, Seven Dwarfs, Robin Hood, Jungle Book, the whole entire background is watercolor. If the characters are interacting, it's not watercolor, and so you can almost tell in old movies if they're going to interact with an object, or if the object's going to come to life or is a thing, is if it's not watercolor, generally speaking. But just the whole entire thing, the verbiage, the way they talk, the way the characters don't have to be perfect, because in so many movies up until that point for me were Disney, which is good. Old Disney's a banger, but it's very cookie cutter, very family friendly, very just you're hitting the edges of the spectrum. You are being cartoonish in your characters, and that they are either good, or bad, bad. There's very little distinction.
Yeah.
And so much of Royal Tenenbaums and a lot of Wes Anderson's other works is they're not like very off, but they're, instead of being at the top left, they move it down and in, and it's just a little bit different, and it adds that little bit of like zhuzh that I was always kind of like, oh, okay. And they made choices that were awkward and weird, and little things like a character loses a finger is a plot point, and you can like, to be able to hang on to little things and not have to have them be super big and have them be like mild and understated. It really just introduced my brain to the way you can approach writing and story creation, and just, it was like watching, I have to imagine it would be like watching somebody, you always make eggs in a frying pan. If somebody pulled out like a pot, like that you would normally make like a shit ton of ravioli in, like, so like a big boiling pot, and then they make scrambled eggs in there, your brain would explode, especially if you were a kid. You're like, wait, you can fucking do that? It's like, yeah, fucking do it. It's like, it's heat plus metal, dipshit. And it just opens up your mind to like, wait, if you can do that with that,
Heat plus
what?
metal, dipshit.
Like, if you can do that with that, what else can you do that with? And it changes the kind of breaking of the mold, allows you to escape and see the world from this different perspective. And that really did just like that for me. It was like, oh, you can do anything.
Well, thinking of doing anything, the next on my entry is Worm, which I adore, and I also read Twig by the same guy, by Wildbow, and I think what I loved about it, was the format, and it kind of opened a different idea of how to write, and it helped push me to write a web serial of my own, which I still like, I still stand by. A bit rough at the start, but that's besides the point. But one thing it did is it did such a cool thing of upping itself
Mm-hmm.
and finding a way to up the ante in ways that felt meaningful. And not just of like a kind of standard monster of the week kind of shit, but different challenges with seemingly upgraded stakes, like regularly.
Mm-hmm.
And the author does such a good job of that. That's such a cool thing to be able to reliably kind of hit on over and over and over and over again. Because he does it in such a way that it feels so wonderfully organic. Because like initially, and it escalates the story too. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and Worm just did it so perfectly. And even like in retrospect, it's very obvious where it's going to end in a way, or like what the last big bad is going to be. And
Yeah.
it spends so much time going through these other big bad scenarios that you kind of forget. And then it finally happens, and it's like, oh shit. Um, but like, I mean, it starts with them being these kind of basically like low-level gangsters, and they're fighting for like turf wars essentially. But then they become the established people, and then they have to fucking deal with the heroes, which they're organized and shit. And, okay, you can deal with them. Fucking Godzilla hits the city because those are things. And the fucking aftermath of things being chaos, like basically their criminal patron turns on them. And it's not as big and grandiose as Godzilla sacking the city, except he knows all your secrets, he knows where you live. How are you gonna deal with this asshole? Like it keeps fucking one upping itself like that, and somehow making the stakes even higher somehow. It is such an excellent use and creativity with powers and with its world building that is, I'm not going to say completely unparalleled,
Mm-hmm.
but it's tremendous. And like, while some of the superpowers, since that's one of the biggest focal points, are very cookie cutter, you know, you just got fucks with super strength sometimes, and that's fine. But like the main character,
It's fine.
yeah, like it's not bad. Like, listen, if a dude can just chuck a car at you, that guy's chucking a car at you. That's pretty goddamn exceptional. Like, but the main character uses bugs. Like, that's her superpower. She controls bugs.
She's fucking what's his name from Naruto.
I have no clue who that is. Um,
Continue on. There's a
oh yeah, but like,
okay.
but that is, I mean, okay, Bari apparently Naruto.
Shinu Aburame. That's his power. Is he just uses bugs.
Good for you,
He can
Shinu.
control them.
Yeah, but like, it opened. Initially, it seems like a bit of a shit power until you get weirdly creative with it,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's weirder ones. Like, there's a guy who's basically a gecko. And he secretes, like, these weird toxins from his skin. He can also, like, basically focus and secrete drugs from his skin. It's weird. Yeah, it was just... It was such a cool, almost creative showcase. And just, like, shit can get wild, and it can get fucking grisly, and still be super captivating.
It's fucking awesome. So, while we're in the land of superpowers,
Yeah.
Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which I guess doesn't, I don't know, it does and doesn't have superpowers. It's I guess not being vegan is a superpower.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it technically has one, I guess.
Yeah, at least one. I don't know. There's guys shooting fireballs and summoning like succubi hipster chicks. It's fucking
Yeah,
I
that's
don't know.
fair. People keeping hammers in their purses and shit. That's a bag of
Yeah, people
holding.
keeping hammering their purses, people dying and coming back to life. It's just stuff. But one of the things this taught me was, and inspired me to do, was just the way he writes, and more on this in a second, but the way he writes dialogue is just so much fun, and the way he choreographs scenes and has them like set up, pay off, these kind of like deep cuts and callbacks, and just like the fun, like any Edgar Wright movie, you can see the fun Edgar Wright is having and especially this one for me, because video game kid, awkward. You know, it's like it hits so many things for me.
Yeah.
But just the way he writes the dialogue and the way he writes the movement of the characters and the kind of like fun and serious. Like you see this in other movies where it's like if you watch like for instance Shaun of the Dead, the movie is funny and also really heavy at times.
Mm.
And being able to blend those two of having a lot of like so that I have this thing and I don't know if it's because I'm on the spectrum or what. I'm not going to pretend like I've got a concrete answer of why, but I go very mono, or at least I did especially. I felt like I had to go like all right, it's serious, it's going to be serious. It's funny, it's going to be funny, and there was no kind of middle ground. And I think this was like one of the first times that I remember really clicking. Oh no, you can just do both.
Yeah.
You can have, and especially like anime too. I think anime does it more frequently, but to see it in true film, no offense to anime, but where because the anime it just has you get a lot of carte blanche, which I think is fair. I think the form has earned it, but doing it with live action is really tricky, and I think that's like seeing it thread the needle in a form and in a visual thing that I can connect to, and it feels more real to me.
Uh-huh.
It just like it opened up a whole new world. It's like, oh, I can do that. I can do that. I can have my cake and eat it too.
Uh-huh.
I'm writing right now. Oh, also, I skipped over this. I decided very much I guess I haven't talked about this. I haven't been writing back end of last year and all of this year up until like, I guess March basically.
Uh-huh.
In March, I decided no, you know what? I want to write. This is something I want to do. So even if I have to, fake it till you make it. The best writers in the world don't feel it all the time. If ever, they want to write, so they write. And so as of I think March 1st or maybe a little bit before, a little bit after, I decided I was going to write every single day for at least 30 minutes.
Uh-huh.
And I've been doing that. And it's felt fucking good.
Nice.
I've also taken a different approach, which is I can't believe I'm saying this, Sylvester Stallone approach, which is just, because, the motherfucker wrote Rocky, won an Oscar. He doesn't not know what he's talking about.
Fair enough. Fair play to you.
It's easy to forget because of everything he's done since then.
It's easy
But
to forget
motherfucker
because
could
of
write.
Rocky.
Huh?
It's easy to forget because of Rocky. Actually, didn't know it won an Oscar.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it did.
Anyways.
But I'm taking the approach of just writing. I'm not trying to write it in format. I'm just trying to get it down.
Uh-huh.
Just like whatever way you can get it from head to text. If that's in format, cool. If that's not in format, cool. The way he used to write is he would take legal pads and just fill them. And you're like, okay. He would keep he's like, yeah, I keep like 10% of it, but I get it out there and it's step one. I'm like, what the fuck? It's like, that's the way you approach it. I was like, oh, okay. And so that's the way I've been approaching it. I've just been writing it down. It's not been in format. Sometimes it's been keeping dialogue or inserting dialogue. Sometimes just fill blank.
Uh-huh.
But I've been really feeling it. And in this piece that I'm writing, which is Magician's Academy, obviously name needs to change, but that's the working title, is I've been finding myself able to, from Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, honestly, and plenty of others great sources, is I've been able to write super serious moments. For instance, character, like you have this situation, all these kids have superpowers, they're trying to test them out, they're trying to be responsible, do it in the right way, kerfuffle happens, guy gets angry, turns around, uses his power accidentally on a fellow super.
Uh-huh.
Cuts off his left arm, just blows it off. It doesn't exist. I believe it just ceases to exist.
Huh.
They take him to the hospital. They drop him off at the hospital. As they're driving away, somberly, one of the characters goes, he's going to be all right. To which the other character goes, you fucking just making a joke right now? It's like, what are you talking about? It's like, and then the scene goes on. So it's like, there is a joke in there, but there's also this super serious moment that is played straight of guy loses his fucking arm. It is gone. And it's this kid. But then, have a joke. You get to do both. If you write it well, you can do both, which is I like the idea of freedom. Not to get really patriotic for a second. The idea of freedom, especially when it comes to creation, is paramount. If you're not free when you're writing, you're not doing it right. At least you need to be free initially, is my sense. And so the ability to do that was very much imprinted on me by Edgar Wright. And I will never, not that I want to, but I will never be able to unlearn that. I owe him that. What about you? What did you learn from your next film or creative? I don't know what this is. What is it? What did you learn from it?
So, sorry. The Dragonlance Chronicles are, they basically give you made D&D into a book. I think actually deliberately. But they're originally, the ones I remember were by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. I believe were the two women who wrote them. And they're basically like you were watching a D&D campaign play out in novel format. And there's a shit ton of...
Die roll included?
No. But there's a shit ton of references and the big kind of high fantasy tropes that you associate with D&D that are included. And it was one of the first things I saw, like, kind of in the same vein of Worm in a way, that, like, the way fantasy can kind of sprawl out and have huge sweeping influence, and the way you can follow up with characters later. Like, there's so many spin-offs that are written, and like next generation stories, and it's this whole massive kind of ecosystem that has its own identity and its own unique rule set and ways that it plays. And it is such an interesting cast of characters too, and it does such a good job with the kind of 5-man band setup. And I think it's probably one of the best examples I can think of in terms of that kind of cliche and having it be really, really compelling. Because each person has their own motivations and kind of role. Like the main, I would argue the lead in some ways is probably the kind of brooding half-elf Tanis who feels like an outcast in most other places. But then you have like a fucking Kender thief who just can't help but make a joke, is constantly getting himself in so much trouble because he's just pickpocketing everybody who walks within 5 feet of him. Like, and if you
have entered my radius.
Yeah.
Time to pocket.
Yeah, like, and if you learn about Kender stuff, it's like, in Kender tradition, something is considered a family heirloom if you keep it more than 2 weeks. Like, you have to nail shit down to keep it. Like, it's ridiculous.
That's awesome.
And this is the same fucking universe where you've Tanis, this super brooding half-elf who was, like, exiled, and his mom was, like, raped, and all this shit. It's like, Jesus Christ, and you have these fucks who is just like, I'm taking that. What? Why? Because it's there. Like, you know, and then you have, like, Caramon and Raistlin, who I think are my 2 favorite characters out of the whole thing. And there's these 2 kind of opposite brothers. Like, Caramon is basically the jock. He's this big fucking fighter. Absolute Chad. And you have his brother, who is this sickly, fucking ghastly... He's a nerd. He's a sorcerer. He's a sorcerer. He's a fucking nerd. He just studies books and constantly reading and rehearsing spells. However, Raistlin eventually does the whole sorcerer power fantasy in D&D and threatens gods eventually.
As you do.
Because magic is a hell of a drug. And like the main opposition most of the time is constantly Toxis, because dragons are terrifying. You know, it's so cool. Like, and I love high fantasy. And there's not a ton of great high fantasy, I think. There is a bunch. But like, I feel like recently high fantasy is not something that's being kind of mass produced with any quality. And so I look back at this very fondly, and I love the 5-man band, especially when people get adequate time to make you feel involved. And I think that this is one of the great examples where they do that very well. Because I love side characters that have actual weight and actual bearing on the story. Because I think there's a lot of places where side stories do fuck all meaningful stuff.
Yeah. It sounds like also reading your work that this is possibly like the kind of jumping off point for you to create your group dynamics.
Yes. Like I'm a sucker for group. Like I don't. I feel like following an individual is hard and can get boring. Like I love having people to play off of, and this is one of those places where if I look back, I go, "No, this is where that started." Like
Yeah.
it's so good.
You know what else is so good? Pulp fucking Fiction. It
Can't
gets
argue with
it
that.
it gets all the accolades it deserves. Every time people hype it up, yeah, they're right. It's fucking goated. The movie's fucking perfect. It's juice. And it's also one of the first times that I got introduced to truly gray characters. You're following hitmen that just on a whim will kill people. You're following like drug addicts. You're following people that cheat at boxing and they're the main character. And if you write them well, it not doesn't matter, but it can easily not matter
Yeah.
their backstory for them to be likable, for them to be appreciated. It's like if you write well, you can have the great as gray a character as you would like.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, wait, what? Again, like one of those freedom things, showing the pant, like making an omelet in a fucking suitcase. You're like, the fuck? It's like, oh yeah, you can fucking do that. The world's your oyster, bro.
You
Just
gotta
like,
get away from this omelet thing. It's starting to go too
all
far.
right, it's like making a pork roast in a toaster. How about that? Like that fucking shit.
No.
It's like
Stop with the kitchen metaphors. You're bad at them.
it's fuck you. It's like making a watercolor in a duvet bag. How about that? There, we're out of the kitchen.
What the fuck is it? Okay.
Duvet bag would be what a duvet comes in. It's usually like a zip thing. Duvets are kind of like
Sure.
heavy.
Sure. Fuck it. Just keep talking.
That's never been a problem. So in Pulp Fiction, the ability to one say whatever the fuck you want, like have these long, as long like kind of understanding that by writing a conversation, you should elicit either something for the story or something for the character. And if you do that well, you can kind of pontificate to a fairly long length and have fun with it. And that freedom and that even that introduction of that option is just like I've obviously, as my co-host can attest, have gone way too far over the edge with that many a time. But knowing that you can do that, that there is a semblance of that distance that you can bridge without going too long or too short and make it work is just like cracked, just and just hammering out pages after pages and having a ball, which is in my and I believe our estimation the most important thing, and getting to just like let your Pegasus chariot take flight is just it's really what keeps me coming back. Watching Pulp Fiction, watching anything by Tarantino, those monologues, those great just non sequitur conversations, it's like, oh yeah. That, like, I mean, if you don't like that as a writer, I don't know who you are, because that, to me, that is that is writing just in its most pure form. It's just somebody having fun at a typewriter, talking about something and also simultaneously nothing.
Yeah.
Letting, the viewer get to infer, but also letting it to just get to be this thing, this like bit of art, and for it to be kind of almost nebulous to a certain extent.
Yeah.
All right, soapbox down, metaphor into the garbage. Mike to you.
I can't talk about anything great and inspirational without having to at least mention Avatar once. Cause
Avatar counter in the corner, please. Ding.
exactly. All right, we can cross that off for criterion met. Avatar is just tremendous, and I think is one of the best like kind of coming of age stories ever. I think it just has so many wonderful character motifs. It has so many wonderful it's terrific, and it does the kind of progressive growth of characters really well. It does what I love with impactful side characters. Like even Sokka, the unpowered guy, still matters. Like a lot.
Yep.
Like
And not in a way, not in a Harley Quinn sort of, I have a baseball bat sort of way either.
No, like he is fully aware that he cannot fucking fight. Like there's no illusion that he can make the difference by being dope with a sword. Like there's moments he could do stuff, but it's like he could fight a soldier or two. The other people could just like, I can throw mountains at them. Well, shit.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? Like, but he's still useful as a tactician. He is useful for like literal group chemistry and keeping them together. Like
He also does learn how to fight in a different way, which I think is important.
yeah, no, like
the sword fighting arc is not irrelevant.
No.
Like he does do work.
like he is very impactful as a tactician. Like
Yeah.
he very much knows how to direct and to kind of orchestrate and organize. Like he is not useless. He just doesn't have like the firepower to do it himself. But like even beyond that, just like actual character chemistry, there's the episode where he's learning to sword fight. And everyone's like, "What the fuck do we do without him?" Like they try to make jokes and can't, and they realize how much humor matters, which I think is outstanding.
Yep.
And the show is just great. It still has an ending that fucking gives me chills when I watch it. Like any scene where Aang is the Avatar, chills every time. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Glowing eyes, glowing arrow, chills. Fuck, goosebumps. Yeah, it's terrific, and one of those things is like I want to make something like that, like something that elicits that kind of emotional response from people when they see it. Like I want to make a character so beloved as Iroh. I want to make a character that has that magnificent turnaround like Zuko. You know, it's done in a way that's so cartoony and childish that it feels attainable, but it's so perfect in so many ways.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. What's next?
No Country for Old Men is a banger. It is an epic that I think it's like one of the first like true epics I remember seeing when I was in high school and being just like floored by just the weight, the color palette on screen, the directing, the acting, and especially the acting. I think this was the first time that I remember seeing a bad guy and kind of rooting for him a little bit. I remember showing Eli and my dad clips of times that Javier Bardem was on screen because it was so fucking cool.
Yeah, I most remember the quarter. Just call it.
Yeah.
Just like,
how much have you ever lost on a coin toss? Just like,
fuck!
Hell yeah! Like it's so.
Don't put it in your pocket. It just becomes a regular coin, which it is.
What it is.
Just, it's like,
what?
Wait a minute. Am I being hustled?
This is. For me, this was growing up, I loved watching Disney. The villains are the best part of most Disney movies. The main character, they're fine. The Disney's, hell yeah. They got the drip. They got the clout. They got it all working.
They got the best musical numbers by far.
They have the best musical numbers by a country mile. They got it all. And then having my dad talk to me about seeing Silence of the Lambs and Hannibal Lecter and how cool that was for him. You know, for my mom, it was Disney villains. For my dad, it was Hannibal Lecter. For me, it was Anton Chigurh. It's like, fuck. So cool. So badass.
Yeah.
And he's the villain. And you don't want to root for him intrinsically because, you know, the way they're creating it, you kind of want the good guy to live and win. He's the bad guy. But it's so well done, and it's a reminder of what villainy can be. Because so often it's, you know, the good guy's good and the bad guy's bad. And the bad guy's kind of cool, but he's really annoying and he's stupid or whatever like that. So to have a bad guy who's got this set of morals, this code, this ethos of like, I'm going to follow this and nothing is going to stop me. You kind of are like, I mean, you're the bad guy, but damn, how can I not root for somebody that is that sure of himself? And like in a way that isn't braggadocious, in a way that isn't, you know, it's bad, but it's not villainous. It's just, this is me. This is the way I operate. And you're like, I mean, I kind of get it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I want to write a character as awe-inspiring as just like, holy fuck, as Anton Chigurh one day. And it constantly has me like, Anytime I think of a villain, I'm like, how can I make him more Anton? So I believe next in your category is one of...
So it's a bit of a departure from most of it, because most of our things have been aspirational or great examples of how it could be done and what we want to replicate. But sometimes you are inspired by hatred. some classic fuck you energy. You know, like, I'm not doing it for the right reasons, but fuck you, I'm doing it anyways.
Sure.
There's two big notable examples here. There would be 50 Shades of Grey and Twilight. I don't hate them for their themes. I don't hate them because they're dumb. I hate them because they're terribly written. They're not good. They're really not. The prose isn't great. The vocabulary isn't stupendous. The characters are fucking uninspired and boring and stupid. The fucking logical inconsistencies abound. They're bad. They're not well-written books. And fucking somehow, they exploded in terms of revenue generated. They fucking saturated the market. They fucking left people just needing to change their pants. The fuck? Like, it is the most undeserved fucking payday in history. That's too far, but still, it's the sentiment I want to convey. Like, and for God's sakes, 50 Shades of Grey is a reprehensible fucking allusion to, like, BDSM. Nah, it's just sexual assault. Like,
Yeah, it's just rape.
yeah, like, anybody... There's no shortage of posts for people who are, like, into BDSM and tie me up, call me daddy, whatever, that are like, what the fuck? Like, no, we're not rapists, you freak. Like,
Yeah.
it's, they're terrible. If they could fucking make it, so can I. Like, that's the takeaway here. Listen, if that fucking schlock can get multiple movie deals, there's a chance, all right? Like,
Yeah.
clearly, the bar to entry is not as high as we think it is. Like, it can be done. Fuck them. Move on.
So, next on the list is basically anything by Miyazaki. But the one, even though I watched Totoro 1,000 times before I watched any of his other works, because that's the one we had on VHS.
That was
Oh,
our
yeah.
sick movie growing up.
Yeah, it was Rainy Day Sick Movie.
Yep. God bless it. Best movie ever.
yeah.
Anyway,
So good.
it's so good.
Porco Rosso reminded me that, it informed me, I guess, rather, because I watched it at a young age, that your main character doesn't have to be, like, in so many movies, and a lot of these do this too, but I think this is the first experience of it. Your main character can be a good guy that's not that good. Like, you can have a character that's good at heart be the good guy, even though a lot of his traipsing are bad. Porco Rosso is a mercenary that does shit for money. It's usually the better side of mercenarying. I don't know what the correct
I don't either.
word of that. But he's not like he's doing it to get paid. He drinks, he smokes. He's like a little bit chauvinistic, but he's a good guy. He's not a fascist. And like, there's a lot of little things about his character. It's just like, kind of like, you can be an adorable, good-hearted schmuck and be the good guy. And that's kind of awesome to me. Because while it is nice to have a puritanical good guy, a knight of a sort,
Sure.
you know, unblemished, it's not realistic.
No.
And it's hard to relate to.
Sure.
You know, the Galahads, you know, depending upon which version, the King Arthurs and whatnot. It's just like,
Yeah.
cool, but like, how the fuck, you know, who is that in my life? Who, you know, like, they're Jesus Christ stand-ins, and it's like, I get it, you're better than me, but like, what am I supposed to, you know, like, where do I go with
fuck
this?
yourself. Yeah.
Porco Rosso is just like, yeah, no, I can totally see that. Like, I get that. Like, it's so relatable.
Yeah.
And being able to write characters that I've experienced in real life that I like, and not have to be like, oh, they're not quite good enough.
Yeah.
That freedom, that liberation, that, like, yeah, just, he smokes he slaps girls on the ass, but also, he stands up for maligned communities. He doesn't allow women to be talked down to. Like little things. It matters, and it again, like so much of this for me is freedom, the ability to write whatever the fuck I want, and these kind of introductions to. I'll leave out the metaphor per my co-host's request, but that kind of, oh my god, I can do that.
Yeah.
It's so important. It is kind of like, we were talking with Aragon, that representation. That representation for me was the mindset of being able to, yeah, no, it's totally fine. In a G-rated cartoon, no less, to make a character that's like, meh. You're like, all right.
Well, speaking of cartoons, that's a terrible transition. Anyways,
No, love it. Go with it.
going with
Embrace.
I love Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Originally I saw the Americanized one, or the rushed one, not Americanized. It's done in Japanese too. And it was a bit unsatisfying in some ways, because it feels like it just has this steep decline in quality, because it does. But Brotherhood is one of the best examples, and I think it's one of those things where, like, if you ask anybody what their favorite anime is, like not 80, but like 50% of the time, this is going to be the answer. And it's like, there is a very good reason for it. And that is because it tells a phenomenal story, and then it's done. It doesn't fucking drag its heels on the exit. It doesn't try to be more than it's supposed to be. And it's a lot. And it does such a good job at being what it is, and it knows what it is. Like, it shows such a value in knowing where you're supposed to be, where your characters are gonna go, where it's gonna fucking end. And it ends. And that, like, there's something about that in this, and this is kind of warped with modern landscapes and the attention economy, that you have to keep everything going as long as possible. That there's just, you need to have more, you need to have more, you need to have more. There need to be spin-offs, there needs to be successors, there needs to be whatever. And that those aren't always intrinsically bad, but there is something so validating and wonderful about that kind of almost painful goodbye to an excellent fucking show and a phenomenal fucking story. And Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is terrific, and that is why it is going to stand the test of time and be one of the best shows made, anime or otherwise, because it ends. And it has such a good ending, and it does not leave any fucking loose tethers out there. Like, it wraps up so beautifully. And it has such a good sense, and it has most of what you want in a fucking show. Like, it has terrific scenes of loss. It has scenes where characters betray their own morals in, like, frustration. It has people evolving and changing and becoming someone new. Like, it's such a good story that has such a good end. And it's so awesome. Like, one of the other few examples I can think of a show that has such a great end that they fucking sullied later was Breaking Bad. They should have never made a fucking follow-up movie. It didn't need to exist. Let it be. Like, I
mean, you're seeing that now, to be a little bit uplifting. You're seeing that a lot now with, like, Netflix. They very much do 6 seasons, and they call it in, like, almost every show. Like, I was listening to an interview with, what's his name? He ran the show called Patriot Act
Hassan Minhaj.
Hassan Minhaj.
Yeah, like,
and people were like, why did your show get canceled? He goes, oh, it didn't get canceled. It did its run. Netflix basically always does, at this point, 6 seasons, the end.
Yeah.
Because they've realized that's the right amount of time for a show to exist.
But I'm not saying that's like false or a lie or anything. There's a lot of things that try to go, especially big, like Marvel is an example.
Oh yeah, no, Marvel isn't. They kind of getting to be a bit ridiculous.
Like, not that their stuff's all bad or anything, but it's like it's starting to become so much that I can't care anymore.
Yep.
Like, and I appreciate how much Brotherhood introduces and just ends. and and also it fucking bangs too. Like it's so good.
Yep.
It has such an awesome cast of characters and awesome twists and turns and shit. Like I'm still forever fucking scared of Pride. Like fuck that small child. Child is terrifying. Like
Yeah.
yeah. And it has such a dope villain too. And like
Yep.
yeah, you spend
No, it's so good.
yeah, you spend so much time being unsure about like who's running the show, and when you finally get the like, it is such great dramatic reveals and all that shit. Like it's just so good. Yeah, and I think it really showed in many ways how valuable a good ending is. What about you? What's next?
So last on the list, before we go to our commercial break, is a favorite of both of ours. Let's start and stop with a favorite.
Yeah.
As Berserk was probably, I don't know about you, but it's one of my favorite mangas of all time.
Yep.
Justified is one of my favorite television shows of all time. The writing in this show, the characters in this show, the dialogue in this show, it was really nice to be reminded and remember that there's beauty in everything.
Yeah.
One of the things that gets maligned in this country a lot, and is at this point become a contention point for me, is when people talk shit about the South. To be clear, not from the South. Don't know a shit ton of people from the South. Know a decent couple of them. And I've had some experiences down in the South. They have been predominantly positive. This idea that us coastals, people in California, New York, Seattle, all on these big metropolitan coasts get to shit on the center of this country and call them fucking idiots, as if they all are, is just, it really separates us. And to have a show that gets to showcase the audio aesthetic that is just so sumptuous of that southern drawl. And if you think the southern drawl doesn't sound cool, you're a fucking moron. It's one of the coolest voice affectations we have in this country, and I think it should be lauded and not shit on. Not a hot take, but I will hit you with a hot take if you say otherwise.
It's a bitch to understand over a phone, though.
It's a bitch to understand over a phone. It's definitely more artistic than it is, like, this isn't the right word, ergonomical, right? It doesn't follow helpful function, but it is just like a piece of art, something to be understood. Something to gaze at. And I think that's one of the ways I like it. If you want to shit on the Southern peeps for not being able to understand them, I think that's fair. But to shit on them because they're not smart, because all this, it's like,
I can't understand like a thick accent from Thailand either. Like,
yeah,
thick accents from anywhere are difficult to understand because it sounds different than what you're used to. If
exactly.
Artemis was here, she could go on an entire diatribe about how you are conditioned to listen to certain sets of sounds based on what you're used to hearing in day-to-day experience. Anyways.
That tracks.
Yeah,
but
anyway, go on.
Yeah. No, absolutely. But I think them showcasing, and they don't like wash it completely one way or the other. They have plenty of characters that are smart. See Boyd Crowder.
Characters that are dumb. See Dewey.
Yeah, see Dewey Crow.
They do a really good job. Nitwit.
Yeah. They've got so much great acting, so much great writing, but what's on showcase here is the difference between us. And so the way they interact and the way they talk, the way they pontificate these deep things, it's a great reminder of like, yeah, you can value, like, there's lots to be valued in this world, and to not just focus in on what's around you, focus elsewhere, look to other books, look to other cultures. This is my takeaway from me, is to not just malign this group because they to you sound blank. It's like, probably aren't in whole cloth. And so this representation for those that I hope appreciated it, and I imagine did, is just so cool and so eye-opening. And it's just so great to see, and such a great reminder for me as a writer to be like, oh yeah, don't forget about the little guy, don't forget about these guys. Find beauty, find joy, find excellence everywhere. It can be the South, it can be an alien community. It's like there is it to be gleaned and gained. You don't have to have it be just from where you are.
Yeah.
Anything to add on the silver-tongued sleuth that is Boyd Crowder before we hit break?
Walter Goggins is just the fucking best. That's all I can say to that. Like, Jesus Christ. Yeah, that man's voice is outstanding. I want more Invincible so I can hear him talk again.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Man, that voice acting cast is fucking stacked.
You want to hear the shit kicker though?
What?
He was never nominated for a Grammy. Oh wait, no, he was nominated. I lied. He was nominated for an Emmy, not a
That's
Grammy.
like Grammy.
No. He was nominated for an Emmy only once for Justified and did not win.
Boo. Anyway. Best supporting actor.
And on that heresy,
Put him in there. What are you doing?
yeah. On that heresy, shall we throw it to break so people can wash their palate with a cup of milk? Or whichever they prefer.
Sure.
Or just listen to this ad.
Do that. Don't you enjoy thinking about how things could always be worse? Isn't it great to look at a hellish wasteland and think, well, thank God I'm not there? Don't you love watching some other sucker struggle against the odds to survive while you're just sitting happily on your couch? Well, let's talk about some post-apocalyptic movies. Be it a cataclysmic flood, debilitating absence of water, or a genetically engineered plague run amok, these movies are packed to the brim with no shortage of human-made consequences our heroes will need to overcome just to make the slightest bit of forward progress. Beset with dangers and fraught with desperation, you can watch survivors in a hellish-drenched nightmarescape kill people senselessly as their humanity erodes away before you. But don't worry, it's just a movie. You don't have to think about the philosophical and moral dilemmas too hard that they face. It's just fiction. So go on, enjoy the end of the world at someone else's expense. Warning, thinking too hard about these movies may enlighten you to the grim fact that humans may be hurtling towards one of these outcomes ourselves due to corporate greed and a lack of empathy. Dwelling on this for prolonged periods may lead to malaise and an increase in political posting on Facebook.
Why, hello there, returners from the ad break. How are you?
I'm from Transylvania all of a sudden.
Is that Transylvania?
I don't know,
Yeah.
you sounded like you were going for Dracula.
Nah, I wasn't going for the children of the night. A little bit more like to the tongue. Anyway, what you been working on this week?
More and more outlining, and more character development. And I made one different.
Bum bum.
So I've had kind of a shtick it exists in my web serial that every adapted is drawn to one another. They are all
Okay.
meant to be social creatures. The idea being that they effectively be an army.
Mm-hmm.
It's the whole purpose of like the microorganism that makes them what they are. Anyways.
Sure.
Because parasites are cool. But I wondered, what if there's one who wasn't? Like a very novel outlier that has been raised and developed antisocial. And I got to actually tie it back into something. And create an interesting link to her with my old character, Infinite. And I'm very happy about it, because I wrote her and I was like, you're interesting, but I don't know why I need you to exist, because you don't seem to serve a purpose quite yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured, I fucking found it, I was so happy. And so their whole gimmick is basically to drain life. And so she is strongest if she can be completely alone, because then she can go to sleep and manifest this kind of apparition that is the Reaper, which is this, it's functionally immortal, it's selectively permeable, and strong, so it can just grab you and fly you to the fucking moon and drop you. Or it can just literally siphon the strength out of you until you're too weak to have your heart beat appropriately.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, but she has to be asleep. So she's in completely vulnerable, which doesn't matter if you're alone. But if she's awake, she's way less potent. She can only manifest parts of it at a time for limited amounts of time, and it's exhausting for her. So, like, while the Reaper can fly, if she tries to fly, it's super haphazard. It's super debilitating. And it sucks. Like, she can kind of controlled fall. Like, actually going up, terrible. But she is related to Infinite, because Infinite was made through isolation. Like, Infinite started as somebody else and was broken, and became this kind of twisted monstrosity of what their powers could be, with caveats. And she is reminiscent of it because she's survived and evolved alone. She hasn't had a cohort to be with. And so her power is reflective of that, which makes her of interest for the main bad guy, because there's a parallel there, and she wants to understand.
Fucking main bad guys.
I mean, the whole main, like, her whole gimmick is bringing back the best, and Infinite was by far the strongest. This person shares qualities? How about that? I want to take a look.
Neato burrito.
And it gives a reason why Reaper has to go find other people, because being alone is a danger. It's dangerous to go alone, and because if you're being hunted by somebody who happens to know where you live, that makes you extremely vulnerable if you're at your strongest when you're asleep. So, I'm interested to see what I end up actually doing with her, as I've been writing through my framework, and finally found where I need her to be introduced. And I'm curious what she'll end up doing for me.
Yeah. That's really cool.
What about you? What you been working on?
The first thing I wrote was this short called Shitty Coffee.
Excellent.
It's a story about a bit of a dickhead who gets up in the morning, finds out that the coffee that he loves so much touts so highly that he's out of. He's got one cup left. And he's like, okay, cool, thank God. You know, I can't go to be going, he's shit-talking all this other Starbucks and stuff like that. And then he has a trouble in his tumbly. And he goes, as a good American would, I postulate, with his coffee cup to the bathroom. In there, does his business, sips a little bit. Oh, so good. Gets up. And he does the foolhardy juvenile approach when it comes to tossing his TP into the toilet, ending up in a ricochet of unfathomable cartoonish events, plopping the used toilet paper where else but
His
coffee cup. Now he's left with a dilemma. His favorite coffee has been sullied. Oh no. However, it's his last cup. Does he deny the brand and pour it out? Or does he suffer the incredulity and drink it? Does he sully? You know, he's also going to have a coffee or a caffeine headache if he doesn't. You know, what does he do? He's left in this paradigm. And it's this silly little sketch of him dealing with that, the mental breakdown, and then there's a twist at the end. That when it is finished, if it is ever finished, we'll read it on, as it is very short, we'll read it on an episode.
Excellent.
Any recommendations this week? Mine, Borowski-Kowski?
Barry. Barry is
Me?
tremendous. It's Bill Hader has no business being as funny as he is and being able to be as serious as he is in Barry. No business. It's bullshit.
Doing both, not being funny.
Yeah. You
Bill Hader's hilarious, but to also be...
Stay in your lane.
And he's like, how about I reinvent the lane, bitch?
Yeah,
I'm like, damn it.
Go fuck yourself. You're too good. But it is a phenomenal show. I've been watching season 3, and it never ceases to amaze me how they keep making interesting twists and turns. And like one of the things I thought in season 3 would be a huge pain point for the characters gets resolved way easier than I thought it would. But something that I didn't think about being problematic is a really big problem. I was like, really? I thought this one was written out. I'm totally wrong, and it makes sense and it works. Like it's such a good show. It's so well written. It's very well acted. Everybody to a degree sort of sucks, and it fits. Like it seems right.
Yeah, they Ted Lasso it up. It sounded like where it's just like, aha, this is going to be the classic kind of sitcom problem paradigm, or for this case, dramatic show arc. It's like, nope, hardly a problem, not even an inconvenience.
Super easy, barely an inconvenience.
Yeah. No, I think that's one of my favorite things about current television is the kind of meta writing, because for so long that was a thing. It was so meta, so played out. People saw it coming a mile away. It's what it was, but people are over it and they wish it didn't happen, but they gritted their teeth past it, or rolled their eyes at the moment. And now writers are being like, yeah, that's been done so much. What if we just did the human thing and had a character forgive? What if we did the human thing and have the characters have a conversation?
Yeah.
Let's bring this shit to the 21st century and have people act like people.
And while I do like that they're willing to do that, I do appreciate just the kind of subversion of some expectation and just having shit be kind of different. Like, because it would make sense if one of the things was the big problem.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not anymore. And one thing you thought was pretty much done and dusted is a huge problem. It's like, huh. But it makes sense either way, the way the characters are written and interact and the conversations they have and the experiences they have.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm really interested to see how the season ends, and I'm really excited for season 4 that starts in like April. So it should be great. And it's a terrific show. What do you want to recommend for people?
I am loving. I've watched it multiple times, but I love Baby Driver.
It's great.
We talked about Edgar Wright earlier. It's my boy. It was a great movie. Again, just crushes it in the direction. The musical cues are fire, and this one he really just let himself go. If you're looking for something with a little bit of a story and a lot of fun, great thought out chase scenes, action sequences, and song montages, Baby Driver is for you. That's all you need to know.
Yep.
Go enjoy.
It's terrific.
Do you have a recommendation in the song department?
I do, strangely enough.
What?
With an asterisk. So,
of course.
So, I kind of fell back in love with a song that I'd forgotten about called Snowblind by AU5 or Gold 5. Good old periodic table jokes. And the original song is 5 minutes 20, 5:40, something like that.
5:47.
5:47. The problem is there's about 2 minutes of that is just robot diarrhea. It's just this garbage, discordant dubstep shit. It doesn't fit. It doesn't make sense. It feels intrusive. Fortunately, somebody was nice enough to edit that shit out, and so you have this 3, close to 4 minute absolute fucking masterpiece that is just wonderful to listen to. I recommend finding a new dubstep version. It's terrific. I've been listening to it a lot recently.
Right on.
What about you?
Checking that out right after the pod ends. I love Joywave. It's one of my favorite bands. I really enjoy their style. Some people that are kind of contentious and whiny. That's fine. I like it. They have this goofy, hard-hitting banger called Fear. F period, E period, A period, R period. Don't know why they decided to do fucking periods, but whatever. It is... Do not let the intro derail you. It sounds a little bit funky for like 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Wait through one chorus at least, and then feel free to turn it off. It's not that long. Isn't that long of a song. Doesn't take that long to get to the chorus. The intro, I've let many people listen to it in car rides, and they just look at me funny. I'm like, just wait for it. You can judge me in a second if you want, but you got to give it. It's like its wind up is very curious.
Mm.
Would recommend though. It's just so fucking good, so much fucking fun, and just slaps very fucking hard. So, with those recommendations, I believe that is our episode. So, thank you for tuning in. And if you enjoyed this, please feel free to
Like,
comment,
share,
and subscribe.
and don't forget that new episodes of Super Pros Bros come out the first and third Saturday of every month.
Bye.
Bye.